All right, y'all, welcome to the Common Arms channel. Okay, so today we're doing another gear review, and today we are checking out the Agilite Sub-Zero. So this is Agilite's introduction to like the minimalistic plate carrier market, which I was super excited to check this one out. So if you guys don't know, I've checked out a lot of plate carriers, specifically some plate carriers from Agilite, and I'll kind of show you the plate carriers that I've checked out, or at least used, because the list is growing pretty fast. So here we have a Varstaleka plate carrier with this cool Snow MO5. We have some of the cheaper like One Tigris plate carriers. We have some Faro Concepts Slicksters, which are probably the most similar to the Sub-Zero as far as what it's supposed to be filling or what kind of role it's supposed to be filling. And then I've also used, as far as Agilite products, the Agilite K5, which I've used this a lot. This was kind of like my primary Army setup for quite some time now. The K0, which is a fantastic plate carrier, probably my favorite to date. Just really well thought out, really well designed. And then I've also used the K19 plate carrier. So those are the plate carriers that at least I've like checked out and reviewed on the channel or used in some capacity. However, I've used a bunch of plate carriers, probably, I don't even know at this point, over 30 easily. Different kind of like plate carriers or vests, from like cheaper airsoft ones to, you know, more expensive, even like, you know, obviously a lot of military issue ones, being in the Marine Corps infantry and the Army infantry. But seeing Agilite introduce something for the minimalistic plate carrier market, I was pretty hyped because this fits a lot of different purposes. Whereas like the K5, you saw there was a lot of things on it. It had a lot of MOLLE. That was very well set up, kind of like for a military purpose, especially kind of like, you know, conventional infantry or just, you know, kind of like special operations even. There's a lot of mounting points. There's a lot of things you can do to it. There's a lot that you can add to it. And that's kind of what the purpose is, kind of what it's supposed to facilitate. With some of these minimalistic plate carriers, they basically allow you to add a placard, and that's pretty much it. They have certain things like the cummerbund to allow you to put magazines in there, have that elasticity, that kind of flex, that freedom of movement. However, this is suited for more of a different purpose, kind of like either a reactionary purpose. So if you're like a civilian and for whatever reason, you need to get some plate carrier on your body, you can do that. Even like for home defense situations, like I have this one currently sitting in my house for kind of like a home defense purpose. And yeah, there's a lot of things that you can use it for. It was specifically developed after the October 7th attacks. So you can well imagine a lot of people were kind of thinking that they had that on their mind, and Agilite delivered very quickly actually. I think, you know, within a year, they had this thing kind of developed and in production, which is a pretty remarkable response time for developing a product like this that's this well thought out and this well executed. So there's a lot of reasons people might use this, even other things like, you know, general security or kind of police, where you just don't need to mount that much more stuff. You know, where it might just be nice to have a plate carrier that you can put some ballistic plates into, but also attach some things if you need to. And I'll talk about the awesome features for this particular plate carrier compared to other minimalistic plate carriers that I've used. Now we'll kind of talk about, like we always do with these reviews, talk about the plate carrier itself, kind of what kind of features it has, what's unique to this plate carrier, and then compare it with some of the other plate carriers that we've used, and talk about my impressions bringing it to the range and using this thing. And I'll kind of throw some clips up throughout the video just so you guys can kind of see this thing in action. You might also have seen it already on my Instagram. I posted some pictures with this thing, but it's a fantastic plate carrier. Wouldn't expect anything less from Agilite. So real quick, you can get this for just under $200, which is a fantastic price for, like, again, it's like, it's hard to quantify something, but having this in my hands, looking at the materials, feeling the materials, looking at the quality of the stitching and everything, that is a fantastic price. And just thinking of getting a plate carrier this nice for that price, even like, I don't know, 20 years ago, seemed like crazy because the plate carrier market was just so weird. Like the tactical vest market was just weird back then. But for this price, to have this many features and just this quality, like this thing is going to last you a long time. It was super encouraging to see that. So super happy to see that price point. As far as like, again, it's supposed to be minimalistic, so it's supposed to be kind of lightweight. The vest itself only weighs about 1.25 pounds, which is pretty pretty insane to think about. That is very, very lightweight. Of course, when you talk about body armor, a lot of that weight is going to come from the body armor plates itself or the padding or soft armor. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of the weight coming from that. But for the vest itself to just be that light, especially with this quality of like the materials, that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty awesome starting point. As far as the actual material, so you have your 500D Cordura, which as we know, a lot of vests are made with that material. It is awesome. It's very abrasion resistant, which isn't like a new thing when you're talking about like plate carriers in general. Like they're usually pretty rigid. They're usually made out of some pretty rigid materials, but the way that they execute it with the different materials, especially like the elastic materials, how they combine everything, how the stitching just holds everything so perfectly. It is a very, very well balanced plate carrier, if that makes any sense. It's not just like all hard and rigid and scratchy. Like they have the Cordura in all the right places, and then you have just like everything else is very, very high quality. So just seeing all of that blend together is really awesome to see. And again, comparing this to like the Ferro Concepts Slickster, which I'll do a little bit later on, like this thing I can already tell is already holding up significantly better. And there's things in place that are kind of responsible for that. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in depth with the comparison piece. Now, as far as those MOLLE cuts, everything is laser cuts. So as opposed to having some of those older plate carriers where you kind of just have the nylon straps basically sewed on, where you didn't really have a whole lot of consistency as far as the spacing. This is all laser cut, so everything's going to be very precise, very consistent, which is awesome when you're talking about mounting things. You don't need to worry about things not necessarily fitting through certain spaces, especially like on the old plate carriers where you'd have like some of the MOLLE on the side where it really wouldn't fit anything. So it's nice to have that consistency as well. So kind of talking about like the top-down approach, looking at the plate carrier. So starting at the straps, again, as compared to like the K5, K19, or K0, these straps are going to be a little bit more minimalistic, just so again, if you're rocking it with certain things like a jacket or basically whatever you're wearing, when you're talking about like tactical environments, that's going to be pretty consistent and pretty tailored to what you're doing. But when you're talking about like more of a reactionary purpose, having something that's kind of more minimalistic is nice because it allows you to work with whatever you're kind of wearing at that point or whatever circumstances there might be outside. So having something like this particular plate carrier is really well set up for even just rocking it with a t-shirt or even rocking it with a bunch of different layers. And having this kind of minimalistic approach makes it a lot easier to kind of be more well-rounded for all of that. So you are going to get a little bit less padding, obviously, when you're talking about kind of like that minimalistic approach. But compared to like the Ferro Concepts Slickster, this is significantly more padding than you would see with something like that. And the thing that I love the most with like, especially the newer like Agilite plate carriers, is it's super adjustable. It's super easy to adjust these as well. So I'll kind of show you guys real quick. So you can kind of see on the inside here, you have basically these numbers. So all you need to do is unvelcro the strap itself and basically just pull it through and set it to whatever number you want to set it at. So right now mine is a little bit above the 3, and it's nice to have these numbers as well. So for example, if you want to kind of measure the plate carrier with like one of your thicker jackets, you can kind of understand where the straps need to sit in relation to the numbers. Or if you're just rocking it with a t-shirt, you can also have a better idea of where that needs to sit as well. But again, you just unvelcro that, you secure it. Again, it's like that Velcro is very, very secure. It's not going to be going anywhere. And then also in the front, you can kind of see here, it's sliding through this panel here, which again, these are also kind of numbered. And then you have the Velcro on top. So all you need to do is release that and you can kind of adjust it very easily. And again, just having those numbers makes it very easy. Even if you like lend this to somebody, you know, and they adjust it however they want, you can kind of have a better idea of where the straps are going to be sitting in relation to those numbers. So whenever you do get it back, you can easily adjust it back, because I've had a lot of plate carriers where I didn't have any sort of system like that. So I'm basically just like taking it on, adjusting it, doing all this stuff. And it takes really like 20 minutes just to get like a good fit, just so the plate bags are actually resting where I need them to be. So they're not like all the way up here or like all the way in the back, kind of like dangling super low. So it is super nice and easy to adjust this thing, which I always appreciate that, making it a little bit easier for like the actual end user. Now you can kind of see the straps are oriented almost in like a V pattern, which is nice because again, you're not having it like all the way like this to where it's chafing your neck. And that happens a lot when you're talking about like a minimalistic plate carrier. Like that happens very often where those straps will be so close to your neck, and because there isn't a whole lot of padding, it'll just end up rubbing your neck pretty crazy. So having that V orientation is nice for that. And at the same time, it also has the weight resting a lot more comfortably on your body, as opposed to kind of just right on your traps and just kind of really digging that in. Because I've noticed with a lot of plate carriers, if they don't have like a nice orientation or a nice like weight distribution, you'll have all that weight right here, and it'll basically make like knots in your traps, which, yeah, those things last a while, and it gets to the point where it feels like you almost have a knife stabbing into your neck, which is not nice. Now moving down, we have the actual kind of hook and loop. So we have some more Velcro. So if you want to put your patches, you can throw some stuff there. And then you also have your mounting points for your placards. So all you have to do is, hook in your G hooks or whatever, and then throw your placard down. Right now I have I think this is a Faro Concepts subgun mag pouch. Not really a placard, but just the Velcro mag pouches. So you can also get these, and they work super well, especially when you have like the Velcro up front, because then you can just take your cummerbund and slap it across. And it works super well, honestly. Like just this setup alone, I've tried it pretty significantly at the range. I've also had this previously on my K0. But again, having the ability to have the placard mounting points is awesome, especially at the different ride heights. You can kind of see you have two different spots you can do it. So you can have it rest a little bit higher or a little bit lower, depending on how big your magazines are or what have you. You can also see, obviously, it can support those dangler pouches. So this is actually the Faro Concepts dangler. You can also get like the Agilite 6-pack. There's a lot of options you can use as far as the dangler pouches, which I was very opposed to for a while, but having used these, they're very, very nice. A very easy way to kind of just add a lot more kind of storage space that's out of the way, which also keeps a lot of that. Sometimes I really used to like the kangaroo pouches, or like the zipper pouches here, or the kangaroo pouches down here, which are nice to kind of store some things. However, like using these, this is kind of like my standard now. It is nice to still have a little bit of storage space up here, but hopefully something that's like minimalistic. Because yeah, if you're storing too much stuff like right here, admin stuff wise, you're gonna kind of like lose all the room for the stuff that you really need right in front of you, which is gonna be like your magazines if you need to do a speed reload or what have you. Now, talking about the cummerbunds, I really love Agilite's cummerbund systems. Like they do a really good job with it. So you can kind of see here, we have the general hook and loop. So you can, again, just kind of throw this on. Even if I didn't have the mag pouches, obviously I have the Velcro underneath. So it basically just attach there. You can also attach things to this area right here. You can see it's got some laser cut MOLLE right there. So if you want, you can get like some mag pouches or radio pouch, what have you, and throw something on there. However, you can also take this part out and basically get an adapter. So if you want to rock the quick detach, like the tubes, you can attach the tubes here and then also attach them right here. So if you want, you can just take those tubes, click it in, and you're not worrying about the Velcro. I know like when it comes to Velcro, especially more in a tactical environments, you don't want to have things like that, mostly because it takes a little bit longer. It might be a little bit more inconsistent as far as like how you're actually mounting it. And at the same time, it's just generally louder. When you talk about more of a reactionary kind of like security kind of consideration, with Velcro, it's very easy to just kind of slap it on. You're not necessarily worrying about like the noise discipline of like the Velcro itself, just trying to like constantly, reorganize this. So if you're in like a patrol base or something, you can actually just use those tubes, click them in. It's very easy to kind of get that plate carrier set up. Hopefully you'd have your body armor on already, but I know how things go. Now, also in the back, we have the actual cummerbund kind of like mounting placards. And then you can see here, you also have some Velcro here. So you can undo this Velcro and slide it through this little mounting placard to kind of adjust it, like how tight you actually want it to be, which is really awesome to just be able to do like the quick adjustments with that. But at the same time, the cummerbund itself is like elastic. So it does have that stretch, which is nice. Even if you like, if you have different layers, if you have something that's elastic, like an elastic cummerbund, it's still going to fit you without like completely destroying your ribs or making it too inflexible. Having that flex is nice if you do have, if you're changing layers quickly, or just in general, if you're trying to like, move around cover to like peek around a wall or something, having that flex is going to be nice. So you're not like fighting the body armor, or, I've had like with the Marine Corps plate carriers, the cummerbund's very rigid on the top. So you lean and they just start like poking you and stuff. It got very uncomfortable very, very quickly. So having that elasticity is great. And you can see here, it's also set up as magazine pouches, which I really like the touch that they added on the top. So you basically have these kind of like rigid panels on the top, which are nice because I'll show you with my Ferro Concept slicksters, the elastic on the top has completely just been like blown out basically. It's like super overstretched. You can kind of see it's got like a baconing effect, which you're not going to get because of this material on the top. So it's going to kind of maintain its shape, which is awesome, and kind of maintain its hold, which is nice. But these are nice. You can fit 5.56 magazines. You can fit 7.62 magazines. You can put tourniquet or radio. There are a lot of things you can throw in here. So having that is awesome. And you have 3 of those. So you can have 3 magazines. You can have 2 magazines, a radio, again, tourniquets, what have you. And then you also have that on the other side as well. So if you want to have, if you're a right-handed shooter, you can have more of the radio and tourniquet stuff on this side, the less urgent stuff. So having that is just really awesome. And before I move into the comparison, I'll just talk about the inside real quick. So here you have the actual kind of like ventilation. So you have the mesh on the inside. Now I like how they only have it kind of in the center here. So when you're talking about this being on your chest or on your back, having those channels, specifically like right here, you get a lot of sweat accumulating. Behind, like in your back, between your shoulder blades, you'll have a lot of sweat accumulating. So having those kind of like channels where the mesh is really, really well thought out. Honestly, if you just have the mesh throughout all of it, which you have on the slickster, and I'll kind of show you that, it gets torn up pretty quickly. So having some of this more durable material, one is nicer because longevity wise, it's going to hold up a lot better. But also at the same time, when you're talking about putting actual plate carrier or body armor in it, this maintains its shape a little bit better. Just having kind of like these more rigid materials, having this mesh, you can kind of see it's a little bit more like flexing, kind of just like floppy material. Again, it's kind of more meant for ventilation than anything else. It's not meant for like structure or stability kind of stuff. So just having those channels is really well thought out. You really don't need that mesh all throughout the plate carrier. And I thought that was a nice kind of feature. And I've liked it previously in other body armor systems, but I do kind of like the thought of just having it right here and just having the kind of like more rigid materials throughout and kind of using that a lot. I've really appreciated how this kind of maintains its shape. And again, just how not torn up it's getting. And I'll kind of show you my slicksters and how that's kind of been tearing it up a little bit, especially when you talk about this mesh. If like the Velcro starts grabbing onto it, like it tears it up pretty quickly. This is a little bit better, like the way that they actually set it up. And because it is new, it's not fuzzy yet, it's not really catching so much. So it is nice to kind of have that. So I'm not worrying about it just kind of like fraying or falling apart. Now, I will say I've only worn the Sub-Zero when it was not Sub-Zero temperatures, but it was pretty cold. It was like in the 30s, 30 degrees Fahrenheit-ish when I was rocking this. So it was pretty cold outside, so I didn't really worry too much about the sweats. So maybe when you're talking about hotter temperatures, it might be more appreciated to have kind of that mesh throughout. But I don't know if this kind of cuts down on cost, but just having kind of like, again, the more like rigid materials that will survive a little bit longer, I think having that on the inside is pretty nice. Again, especially when you're talking about kind of like this much Velcro, it will tend to kind of tear up that mesh a little bit more than something like the nylon or the Cordura. Now, the last unique thing that I want to talk about with the Sub-Zero is you can also put placards on the back. So you can kind of see here, you have more of that hook and loop. You can also put the placards on the back, which are nice. It's nice if you're working in like a stack, for example. This is something that we did when I was on my CQB team, is we would have either like a weapons catch here, or we would have like flashbang pouches. Even some people had magazine pouches or even canteen pouches in the back. So if you're in a stack, if you were operating for a long period of time, you could, take a flashbang off of your buddy, hand it to him and use that. You can take their canteen and drink from that. There's a lot of like unique setups people had on the back, but just having the ability to have placards on the back to have like ammunition or something for your buddies or what have you, it's nice to have that ability to also just store some things on the back using a placard, which makes things a lot more convenient, to be honest. Okay, so let me grab these Slicksters and I'll kind of compare it, because again, with the other plate carriers that I've used, that's the closest kind of competitor to this particular plate carrier. Okay, so here we have a Vero Concept Slickster. So again, I'll kind of just, this also accepts, let me move over here. This also accepts placards. Ooh, that sound, it's horrendous. I don't know, the Velcro sounds louder on this for some reason. So yeah, you can kind of see here with the hooks, you can kind of just attach them to those points, and then the placard itself will kind of just stick in there. So that's kind of what the placard setup actually looks like. Now you can see on the inside, you have that mesh kind of all throughout. And then you can kind of see also the straps, no padding pretty much at all. You also have kind of like that hook and loop, the fuzzy part right here, which, you know, is kind of like, it's okay. It's kind of like a little bit of padding in itself. But the way that you adjust this is you basically get like a plastic tab. You put it in here with the strap. So basically it prevents the hook and loop from attaching. And then you basically dig it down deep as far as you need it. And then you pull out that plastic and then the hook and loop can attach. So it's a pretty interesting system, but it's a lot easier and more consistent with the Sub-Zero setup compared to something like this. Now you can also kind of see on the sides here, so this also has an elastic cummerbund with kind of like that setup for the magazines and whatnot. But again, you can kind of see on the top, the elastic part is kind of baconing, because again, I've put like magazines, I've put radios, I've put different things, smoke grenades, I've put them in here. So just all that stretching, not having that kind of support on the top like you see with the Sub-Zero, you can kind of see it's kind of just blown the elastic out a little bit. It still works, you know, pretty well. It's still pretty rigid, but as far as the top is concerned, it makes it a little bit harder to like actually put things back in. And then again, at the same time, if something starts slipping towards the top, the elastic on the top is significantly weaker than the bottom. So you do have the potential of things slipping out if they don't have like as tight of a fit. And these are also a little bit harder to fit like 7.62 magazines. You can do it, but I just felt like it was a lot easier with the Sub-Zero. But yeah, it's a nice setup, very comparable to the Sub-Zero. But again, just things to consider that just add that kind of like long-term survivability or long-term durability when it comes to the elasticity. And now again, kind of talking about the mesh, I don't know if you can really tell, but on the sides specifically where you do have like kind of like the Velcro basically ends up hitting the sides, it is fraying up pretty significantly. And all throughout the mesh, there are also kind of just like pockets of it fraying or kind of just getting like pulled apart, especially more towards the top here. You can kind of see that, especially on the sides. If that starts ripping, obviously that's going to be pretty bad, because then if this starts ripping and the whole thing rips open, you're not really going to be holding body armor at that point, or you have the potential of it kind of shifting. But I mean, I've had this for a while and it's still held up. I've had probably this for maybe 3 or 4 years now. So it does hold up. I haven't used it too much, to be honest. But again, just kind of like in transport or even just kind of like chucking it around, it does get pretty torn up when you're talking about that kind of mesh on the inside. But again, as far as how they compare, you can't actually put the placards on the back of this like you can with the Sub-Zero. So again, Agilite, they're not just kind of taking something that was already on the market and just making their own version. They are always innovating and always improving that design, which and I can really appreciate it. And again, just the materials that they use just make it feel like so durable, like just very, very rock solid plate carrier. Now, as far as using this with a bunch of different weapons, having it with belt setups, no issues whatsoever. Nothing was getting in the way. I could, you know, draw my pistol easily. Using it with a bunch of different weapons, at no point did the plate carrier get in the way of that, especially, again, like this V design kind of helps because it creates a little bit of like a better pocket when you're actually shouldering a weapon. And at the same time, when you're talking about, it's like, usually sometimes you'll have the option for like a buckle here with like Agilite products. you can usually kind of like swap that stuff out. But yeah, you have some buckles here, which when you're talking about shouldering a weapon, it has a potential of just either being loud or just kind of sliding off, or just being uncomfortable. If you put like the stock over the buckle, it can get pretty annoying, especially being right over like your clavicle and stuff. It gets pretty uncomfortable having a buckle. So having the ability to kind of swap that out or just, minimize it when you're talking about like a minimalistic plate carrier, that is nice. So you're not having any of that bulk, any of that like kind of extra plastic, especially when you're talking about the buckles. I've seen a few of those actually just break because, again, it is that plastic being exposed to a lot of different environments or chemicals even, like those things tend to fail, kind of like that plastic. So having something like this, just kind of more minimalistic and flat, is, I think, probably the best solution when you're talking about these kind of minimalistic plate carrier designs. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the Sub-Zero. I mean, again, just fantastic plate carrier. Agilite always knocks this stuff out of the park. I mean, they have a lot of experience. They have the passion, especially with, why this was designed. They have the people with the experience who are going out and testing it and using it. So they know what works and what doesn't work and what the operators in the field need to have or would like to have. And those like to haves, having them actually be implemented into a plate carrier are a really nice touch. It really adds a lot of kind of comfort and just like usability in general when you're talking about different kind of missions and purposes as well. But if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. If you want to maybe have me try different magazines in these pouches, I could do that. If you want me to kind of see how shouldering it with certain weapons works or just different things, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try and facilitate to the best of my ability. But yeah, fantastic plate carrier. If you guys were on the fence of buying this, you guys already know, full transparency, they sent me this plate carrier at no cost to me, but I would 100%, and I already have invested money in purchasing their products, and I would always go back to them. They are always going to be the first company that I would recommend for tactical, especially plate carrier equipment. So yeah, 100% would recommend this product if you guys were on the fence. But yeah, if you have any questions, definitely let me know. Hopefully you guys appreciated it. If you would like to see anything specific in these reviews, let me know. I'm always trying to kind of improve them, especially kind of like with the range footage. It's a nice attention grabber for sure, but also just having that, you guys can kind of see that I am actually testing the product. So just having that in there is nice for me, so you guys kind of understand I'm not just like making this stuff up. But yeah, if you have any questions or would like to see anything else, definitely let me know. But that is it for this video. I'll see y'all in the next one.